I declare my position as a Vice President of the Local Government Association, and it's a pleasure to follow the noble lady Baroness Brinton and to speak after my noble friend Baroness Jones of Moulscombe, who covered particularly the issues home educators have with this bill. I will be covering in our division of Labor all other aspects of the bill, but there are two I particularly want to focus on today. Now, when I looked at this bill, and particularly its provisions for multi-academy trusts, a Dennis Healy principle came to mind. It's been labelled the first law of holes: when you're in one, stop digging. Now, the noble Lord Blunkett said, reflecting a view shared by many other noble lords, that this is a mouse of a bill, one that fails comprehensively to offer new ideas, new approaches, to tackle the enormous, seemingly overwhelming challenges faced by young people today in a society that is so badly failing them. Rather, I'd say it's a mole of a bill. The government is blindly digging in deeper on a failed policy, a policy that demonstrably does not even deliver what seems to be the one thing the government is focused on: better exam results in a narrow handful of subjects. It also seems weirdly out of step with what you might think of as conservative philosophies: more bureaucracy, lack of local control, lack of local democracy. It's also a policy that you'd think, given the problems of corruption in government spending that the noble Lord Agnew has so strongly spoken out of in other contexts, the government might be having second thoughts about. The controls handed to the Secretary of State means the Secretary of State will have extreme oversight over what multi-academy trusts do. And I note that the extremely valuable briefing from the LSE points out that related party transactions, business arrangements between a MAT and a body that's associated with its governance, were worth £120 million in 2015. Now, I know that the noble lady, the Minister, may say there's been steps taken to crack down on that, but what if these powers are all handed to the Secretary of State? But the issues here are bigger, much bigger than merely money. They're about what schools are, not or should not be, sausage machines to shove out identikit pupils all round the country with the best possible exam results. What they should be are integral parts of communities, contributing not just to the education of the young, but building strong ties across all ages. Without local governance and oversight, involvement, and MATs don't require that at any level, but even if they do have some kind of community involvement and governance, they may well be spread across the country, hundreds of kilometres apart. How will local parents and citizens want to contribute, want to get involved, feel it's their school when they have no say? Now, there was one phrase in clause 53 of the bill that really struck me. It talks about, quote, the proprietor of a school in England. Proprietor, the dictionary tells me, is the owner of a business or the holder of a property. Now, that's a legal definition, but what does it say about the government's idea of what a MAT is? We've seen so many sweeping privatisations, and we've failed to recognise that schools is another area where we've lost so much public control and ownership. Another aspect of the MAT model is striking. I go to an unsigned Department of Education blog dated 14th of October 2021, which, in justifying the government's stance, says MATs enable the strongest leaders to take responsibility for supporting more schools. So again, we encounter what I'd say is a profoundly ungreen, but more importantly, a profoundly unsuccessful model of leadership. One person blazes the trail, shows the way, and everyone else trudges along behind, following the directions of one person. Instead, why not draw on the talents, the abilities, the skills, the energy of the many? Teachers, parents, communities, and pupils, to collectively shape their local school. As the LSE suggests, why not restore each school as an individual entity? And if you really want to keep MATs, allow schools to opt in and out as they like. Now, that's not to decry the power of networks, but that would be schools voluntarily, ideally groups of local schools, joining together, working together. But a forced model is not a community, It's a bureaucratic top-down imposition. Now, the second point I wanted to raise was about mental health. Although the lack of provisions in this bill, given our epidemic of mental ill health, is striking. On the 29th of March, I asked the Noble Lady the Minister about the UK having the unhappiest children in Europe. Her answer was entirely about exam results allegedly delivering better chances for children. Does she really think that deeply unhappy children, or children with mental illness, anxiety, depression, who are self-harming, can really be expected to attain the exam results that she and the government crave? I would like to ask the Minister two direct questions to finish my speech. I asked the Minister if she's prepared to consult with two excellent organisations addressing issues around the push in this bill to focus on attendance, to force pupils into school, despite the challenges it may well present to their health and well-being. These organisations are Square Peg and Not Fine in School. I asked the Noble Lady, the Minister, if she will listen to what they have to say, that attendance and attainment cannot be at the expense of a child's mental health and emotional well-being. And my second further question is to ask the Noble Lady the Minister what the government has actually done to listen to pupils in drawing up this bill. What consultation with young people has there been in the provisions in this bill?